Hi everyone, it's Rudy at Colonial Painting Studio. Different style of video today. I have somehow managed to add about 7 kilos of lead onto the old lead pile. Saw something come up on eBay and seemed like too good a bargain to pass up. Unpacking this with you right now. I don't know how it's going to look inside, but let's have a look at all the lovely loot in here. Right, so 3 packages to unwrap. Let's grab a scalpel, cut through some of the tape on the first one. Well, it really is a pile of lead. It's a few individual bags of figures. Right, let's have a look in the first one. So it's a bit of a mix. That's a Napoleonic French General de Brigade or Division, because I think I've painted one of them up myself. That's a Perry. And this appears to be a lot of English Civil War cavalry. Now, of course, I could see from the pictures that there was English Civil War types in there, but everything was at a distance of a big old lot, so it's going to be really interesting to explore down into all these packages, try and organise things, and work out exactly what I've got here. Oh boy, that's a lot of lead. There's everything from late Romans, a lot of English Civil War, musketeers command, not so many pikemen, a lot of cavalry, again mainly English Civil War types. There are a couple of Napoleonic French generals and horses, a lot of colonial stuff like Boxer Rebellion from what I can tell, along with some Napoleonic Prussians, and at the end over there is some front rank French and Indian War models. So I think I need to organise this into sort of the individual periods and then start tallying up. Let's talk about the War of Three Kingdoms figures to begin with. I've mentioned ECW before because I think that's an easy shorthand that everyone knows. But of course, it wasn't just the English Civil War. There were plenty of battles involving Scots and Irish as well. And up here in the Highlands, there's quite a few of the battlefields around here, like Aldern and Carbisdale. Inverlochy's not too far away, that's modern day Fort William. So I think my interest in this period really is, of course, going to be a bit Scottish centric. In light of that, it's maybe a little bit disappointing that there's only a handful of sort of Covenanter types. I reckon these guys in bonnets, they can be Covenanter pike, Covenanter musket. There's some guys in sort of woolly hats. Well, they might do as Irish that fought for Montrose. Down here, there's a bunch of command type figures for English regiments. A bit short on pike, as it turns out. I reckon there's 21 models for pike. That compares to 62 musketeers. In the middle there's 7 drummers. So from what I understand, like ratio would have been about 2 musketeers to every 1 pike. It's more than 3 to 1 as it stands at the moment. So I think I've got enough here perhaps to do a battalia. And then if I want to expand on that, then maybe I'll need to purchase some pike. I think the vast majority of castings here are from bicorn just from having a quick look at figures online. But maybe if anybody's watching can cast some more light on things, then I'm happy to take advice. On to the horse. So 27 riders, but only 20 mounts. Again, I think the majority of these are bicorn castings. A couple of the horses don't fit. This one's a bit smaller. My suspicion is it's probably a foundry. This one is a different shape. I do wonder if that's a Perry example. And this little one here, not sure. Big chunky base. Maybe Essex, maybe a different period entirely. Well, a couple of commanders. And plenty of dragoons here. Dragoon command. 5 dragoons. And 8 or so, sorry, 9 cavalry figures as well. So I think there's enough to certainly equip a royalist or parliamentarian force from what's come out of the boxes here. Heading back in time to the downfall of Rome. The vast majority of the figures here are gripping beast from their late Roman and Arthurian ranges, so lots of Romano-British. I think these are foundry late Roman command because they're a bit smaller. There's a couple of odds and sods. There's a priest type, maybe St. Cuthbert perhaps, a single lone archer. This dude looks a bit more like a Viking, and somebody with a wolf cloak. These 3 figures, I think they're from a war machine, possibly the onager. He seems to be carrying a big stone. 17 warriors in mail, and then 12 warriors in light or no armour, with a sort of typical late Roman oval shield. 15 or so unarmoured with a round shield. 12 no shield at all. I think some of these are maybe sort of leaning more towards territory of like Saxons or Franks. Look at the cap on that guy and his fancy pigtails. But there's 66 odd figures for the very early medieval period, which I'm sure could all be cobbled together into a really decent sized force for someone like Saga, and possibly the starts of a Hail Caesar army as well. 19th century and later, a few useful things to me, a few not so interesting. These horses, I think they probably pair up with some of the colonial period riders here, but experts in English Civil War might be able to tell me otherwise, but they don't seem to match the other ones that I looked at before. I think this might actually be a Second World War artilleryman, some sort of gentleman fancy hat. Up along the top, a couple of French generals, 3 horses, and they're all from Perry. This guy's from Warlord, but the other 2 are French line infantry command, so that's a useful set for me. And this is Prussian Landwehr command in the stiffened caps. I do have a Prussian force on the go, though I got bored of painting the same thing over and over again, but maybe some new miniatures will freshen that up. Boxer Rebellion type Chinese down here, and some other colonial period types. I'm not sure. It's not really a period I know much about. I'm not very interested in. I'm going to assume that these are probably foundry figures. Again, anyone got any more clues, please let me know. These guys are probably Franco-Prussian War because of the helmets that they're wearing. The odd one out here is this obviously feudal type horseman whose lance is now in a twirly-whirly shape. Forget about him. All the painted figures here are all from front rank. It's 18th century stuff. There's American War of Independence Germans, some Hessian Jaegers. There are some of Butler's Rangers. There's also French Indian War stuff, like French Coureur de Bois. That'll be horribly pronounced, but woodsman. Rogers Rangers over here. And then a bunch of militia types, which would do for, I think, either period, as in French Indian War or American War of Independence. Now, these figures have been mostly torn off bases, so there's a bunch of like MDF or fiberboard stuck to them that'll need cleaned off. They're very grubby. I think, honestly, what's probably needed here is a complete paint strip before I do anything with these. And that's a process I could take you through with a video if anybody's interested in how I'd go about that. Might as well show off the odds and sods before I tidy everything up. It's part of a gun. I don't know if the wheels are necessarily a match for it. This looks a bit piratey. I don't know if it's actually mid-17th century or not. There's some powder kegs, piles of cannonballs, a bunch of heads. Is it Readout that does separate heads for their figures? They possibly came from there. Some tools, bendy spears. Don't like bendy spears. I'll use cast steel ones. Well, some swords and other accoutrement to stick to figures. Well, that's a ridiculous amount of lead. If you ever wondered what 6 kilograms of lead figures translates to, it's about 320 figures. It was a bit of an irresistible deal. I think it comes out to about 22 pence per casting, all metal figures. Plus there is a lot of extra bits to go with it as well. I mean, it's not usable as a single force. There's models from many periods here. Some of them I'm not particularly interested in. Colonial stuff doesn't really do much for me, and those sort of older foundry sculpts are not the best. There's some others in there that I don't recognise. Perhaps other people who have been watching can point me in the right direction. But I think most of the War of the Three Kingdoms stuff is from Bicorn, and by and large those look like really nice sculpts. As I mentioned earlier, it's a bit short on pike, but I'm sure there's a single battalion or two of English types to go there. Not quite enough Covenanters or Montrose Irish. That would be what I'd be really interested in if I was doing the War of the Three Kingdoms period, but there's potential for getting into that later. There's the good old Napoleonics. Yep, you can always put French generals and Prussian landwehr to good use. Early medieval stuff, late Roman, Arthurian, British. It's not something I've done much of. I did read a great book about the downfall of Rome last year, which kind of got me interested in Goths and stuff. So, maybe I'll rekindle that interest. There's also, of course, the potential to get some Picts together, kind of in the heartland of where the Picts were back in sort of the later half of the first millennium. And American War of Independence is something that I am currently doing anyhow. So I reckon there's plenty of interesting things to paint here. Let me know in the comments if there's anything that I've put on display here that you're particularly interested in seeing me turn my hand to. There's the good old familiar Napoleonics, which I think the vast majority of my videos have been about. But if you want to look at some early medieval stuff, War of the Three Kingdoms, let me know, and I'll try and find time for a video. Thanks to my channel member and Patreon supporters. They're helping me make these impulse purchases, which will hopefully translate into some decent painting guides for everyone. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got any comments, leave them below. Tell me what I've missed from my lot of models, and let's pick a new direction for the channel. Bye for now.